it's time. Come on, let's go. Let's do it. Rolling on the road with the doc. Rolling on the road with Dave. Rolling on the road with the doc. 100 states of the possibilities with Dave and Dr. Burton. All right. That was cool. Yeah. Hey, that was nice.
Good evening. I should say it's not afternoon, it's evening. I know this is a different time for us, and this is a special edition Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. And this is actually the end of the month, and September is Suicide Prevention Month. It's National Suicide Prevention Month. And we have heard from individuals, we have heard from the big pharma like Threshold and Be Nice. And today we are wrapping up this series with a psychiatrist. So I know many of you had questions that you asked of individuals, and you asked of Thresholds and of Be Nice. I think that Be Nice, it was wonderful. We actually did a role play the other day, and it was extremely helpful. But I am excited to have Dr. Carolyn King. Yes. We're excited. We're clapping. And for those of you who do not know, this is clapping in sign language because I got one good hand. So, I'm clapping. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm well. Are you talking to me?
I am.
As you see, I'm over here multitasking. I usually have used up all of my multitasking tokens, but for you, I brought a couple of multitasking tokens back out.
So how does that work, having these multitasking tokens?
So when I was younger, I would multitask all the time. I would do 3 to 5 things at a time. I would be driving to Wayne State, putting on my makeup, driving with my knee, and being on the phone.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's 3, right? Who knows? We could have been studying for an exam while we were on the phone. Who knows what else was going on? But I did so much when I was younger that now I literally have to do one thing at a time. And it has been refreshing. But every so often, I get one more multitasking token that I can use. And so today is that day. So I am here multitasking with you. I wish I knew how to make this live on my Facebook, but I don't know how to do that.
What I can do, you're going to go to my page.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to click share over onto your page.
Okay, see there? I ask.
That's
you
it.
have not because you ask not.
That part.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I have asked and now it's about to happen. So I'm going on to one of my platforms here that I have open in front of me, which is why it took me a minute to get here. Okay, Barrington, right? Yep, gotcha. And you are live on your platform. I see it and I see me. And I'm going to share it to my platform. Okay, check us out. The docs are in the house.
I love it.
Okay. The house talking about September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And I love the way it sounds because you don't just want it to be suicide awareness, because people would be thinking, oh, I'm aware, now what? No, you want to be aware of how to prevent. That's what you want to be aware of, okay? Because that is the key. So I did that, and I think now you are on there. Okay, I can double check. Yep, we are. Okay, sounds good. So let's go. I'm ready.
Woohoo! I'm ready. We have a plethora of questions, and I'm going to try to acknowledge folks as they come on, but I want you to have the time to answer the questions that have come up all week and on today from a psychiatric standpoint,
Okay.
because at the end of the day, you're the one that they're going to come and see. You know, when it's time for the counseling, yep, you get to be nice. Be nice is going to tell you, well, this is where you need to go. These are all the steps. You get the thresholds. They have their piece. You go to network 180. But at the end of the day, you got to go and see the doc.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
All right. The first thing that we learned is that our language is incorrect. That so if we can say what we've learned all month long, so let's start out with some of the things that we've learned. Is number one, we're using the incorrect language. We say people commit suicide, and it's not that. It's we commit crimes, but we die by suicide.
Yes.
Let's unpack that just a little bit, how languaging makes the difference, because one of the most difficult pieces, we had 2 families that were on this month that talked about how it made them feel to be left behind. Because one of the shows was the people that you leave behind when you die by suicide.
Yes. Yes. And so the reason that it is very, very important to have that language of we commit crimes, and suicide previously was a crime. So if you didn't actually die by suicide, you could be imprisoned for attempting to die by suicide because it was a crime.
So that's where the terminology originally came from.
I think that has something to do with the origins of the word commit suicide, is that it has previously been a crime. Right. And
Wow.
so when you look at, you know, criminality, legality, when you look at religion, so even religiously, we think of it as taboo, correct? To die by suicide is something that is very taboo in a lot of religions. And so even as a crime against our religious laws, right? So when you take it back to that, that's really where the commit word comes from. But now that we are, as you said, unpacking it, it really is a death. And so people's death is very controversial, right? There's Kevorkian, who was doing assisted suicides, euthanasia for people who have long-standing health issues, right? And so people had a lot of problem with it because they're like, well, aren't they dying by suicide if they're having an assisted death in that situation?
So in that sense, would that not be committing suicide because that person is assisting them and that's a crime?
Well, not every place is it a crime. Some places euthanasia is legal. And I can't tell you which places, but there is legislation to legalize it in places.
Okay.
Because I knew you were going to ask me which places. If I would tell it, but I have to, when I don't know, I have to say I don't know. I do know that, you know, there are, I mean, you think about some people's illness and, you know, some people have taken, you know, a bit of excess of their pain medicines at that very end of life stage in order to assist the process. Because assisted death is not legal yet, people don't call it that. They just say, yeah, we'll give them a little bit more of their pain medicine so that they can kind of ease into the process.
Well, that's what they told me to do with my uncle. Hospice came and they gave me the morphine, and they told me when they have a whole list of exactly how a person begins that process of dying. And then it's like, okay, when you get to this point, you can bump up the medication so that they're just comfortable, because when they get to this point here, they will no longer be verbal to let you know that the pain is there. But you definitely can tell. They gave me like all the signs, the body language. And I just kind of looked like, so basically what you're telling me is I'm just helping him along. Well, we can't say it that way. We just say that we're helping to medicate them so that they're not in pain.
Right. Right. And so that's where the line is, right? Because when we look at depression as an illness, the pain of depression is so real that the person that attempts to die in that way feels like they're at the end of their life.
Yeah.
In the way that a person who has a terminal illness has in reality, either because they're brain dead or because they're, end stage renal failure or whatever it is, that they're at that stage of life where, their faculties aren't working, and their quality of life has just gone down so far. So it's a very controversial topic. And I didn't have anything prepared, which is why I'm burning my Palo Santo, because I knew we would be in this heavy conversation. So I needed to stay centered and at peace.
So even, as we really delve into the depression piece, I can remember the pain that I felt when I wanted to die by suicide. I wanted the pain that I was feeling to stop. I needed it to end. And I would have said, yes, please, somebody assist me. I don't want to have a conversation.
Right.
How can you make this pain stop?
Right. And so for people that I have talked with who have attempted, because I worked in the hospital for many years, and the criteria to get in the hospital is either suicide or homicide, right? And so this one teenager who had attempted, and it was pretty severe. I mean, they were in the ICU and they lived through it. But when they came, to the unit, and I said to her, I said, so if you were to talk to somebody who is in that same place that you were in, what would you say to them? And essentially what she said was, I would tell them to take a minute, take a deep breath, relax, and remember, it's going to be okay. You will get through this. And in that minute, people can change their mind.
You can.
In that minute, people can change their mind. But people don't often take that minute.
No.
They just they zoom through it. They zoom through it, right? In that minute, they zoom through it. And that is that literally that's that fatal minute.
It is. We want to say hello back to Shayna, who is tuning in from Bel Air, Maryland. Hey, Shayna, thank you so much for being here. I think for me, the pain, when I look at it now, it was centered around being in the military. And I didn't have the minute in that moment, but there was still a period of time at the hospital where there was the moment. Because I still could have, I had more things available to me in that moment, and could have said, good, here I am at the hospital, then I don't have anything to worry about. And this makes it even smoother, a smoother transition than being found.
Yeah, there's that. People really think it through.
So it was just in that moment, when you say to take that minute, that's where my minute kind of went. was like, oh my gosh, good. Now my kids don't come through the door and find me. That would be more traumatic. At least we could say, hey, she was in the hospital. There were complications. Then I started thinking about what is going to be the story, what's going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it could always be, the spin is there were some complications at the hospital. I have asthma. I was in Virginia. We could have spun the story any kind of way. I guess it could have been.
Right.
But the piece that I look at today, the healed me versus the me then, I said, what would I have said? You can't do this because there are women who are going to come out of the military that would have gone through the same situation that you went through. They're going to feel this pain, and you need to be there for them.
Yeah.
You need to be there for them.
And that
is going to need you.
Yeah, that is absolutely one of the things that helps people to not make the decision to die by suicide, is realizing that when you die by suicide, you basically give license to other people to die by suicide. That is the reason that they don't publish who dies by suicide as openly as in the newspaper, etc., as they do other deaths. It's very, very difficult to see how many people died by suicide in your area because they don't want what's called copycat. Because people will copycat and make suicide attempts.
I appreciate that, Shana. Shana says you have to be there to help the next person.
That's so succinctly said. Thank you. Sometimes I can be so wordy, Shana, and I do need interpreters to help edit down my words. And you just were my interpreter into lay language. Thank you. You need to be there to help the next person. I'm gonna write that down because that was really good. That was really, really good. I needed that.
I know when I thought about it, that was back in the 1900s, but in 2022, that ideation came back. And when I started having conversations, oh, she said, you're welcome. And when those ideations came back, and I had to be honest with I call them my accountability partners. Those people that I depend on them and they depend on me, and they're covenant relationships. And I said, hey, I got to talk to you a minute. And she's like, what's going on? Now, this young lady lives in Wisconsin. And I said, these were the thoughts I was having. This is where I was. And this is what stopped me. And she just started crying profusely. And the first thing that she said, Shana, were basically those words. If you don't make it, what does that tell the rest of us? Because we all lean on you. We think that you're really strong. And if you weren't strong enough to get through it, then I guess the rest of us aren't either.
Right. Yeah.
That thing hit me right here in my heart. And it was right there in my brain. I was in group. Wait a minute, it's got to go over on this side. I don't want it to be the part that they cut out of my head. Okay, so it was over here, right here.
Right. I'm surprised it didn't hit you in the gut.
It did.
Okay. Now the reason
I had the bubble guts for I don't know how long, but after that.
So I wouldn't be a psychiatrist if I don't talk about the connection between the brain and the gut. So serotonin is a brain chemical, and it's thought to be the thinking brain chemical. And there's actually more serotonin in our guts than there is in our brain. So when people are on antidepressant medications like Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, etc., and they've all got their generic names, sertraline, citalopram, etc. Anyhow, when people are on those, they're actually increasing their serotonin in their brain. But remember, there's more serotonin in your gut than there is in your brain. So when you have those thoughts that so quickly become feelings, that so quickly become behaviors, it's a serotonin laden experience. So often we'll feel it in the gut. And we might get bubble guts. We might have an episode of diarrhea. We might have an episode of constipation. That's where that irritable bowel and stress has that relationship. So that's the next 15, 20 years of medicine.
Yep, that is definitely me. That's the piece that I always remind myself is that if you don't deal with that, it's gonna find a place to settle in your body. And when I had my stroke, I was like, look, you got enough places that's not working. You don't need another thing. Get it together.
Yeah.
Get it together. The time is now 21 minutes after the hour. And this is a special edition of Rolling on the Road with Dr. Kimberly and Dave. Our special guest today is psychiatrist Dr. Carolyn King. And we're wrapping up the series that we did for September, which is National Suicide Prevention Month. And please, questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to us, while we're here live and even after the broadcast. And if you are watching via GRTV 25, know that the information that you are receiving today is Friday, September 27th. It is relevant and it does not expire. We're talking about suicide prevention, depression, and all the pieces that go by that. And we're learning new language. And we're so grateful to you. I mean, you look like you need to be on the beach somewhere with that hat on.
Oh, right. Because I want to be on a beach. There's a whole hurricane in North Carolina. And the people who, are down in the places where there are beaches are experiencing, unfortunately, a death toll. I think the last I checked, it was 28 people died by Helene. There's a lot going on. So I think between that and holding on to the last little bit of summer that we're having before hurricane fall comes in.
We want to say thank you so much to Shantae Paul, who is tuned in. Thank you. That's my Tay. I appreciate her. She was on the show this month, and her topic was the children that you leave behind. Mm-hmm. She had just had a baby with her beloved, and they had an older son. So they had a son who was 18 or was turning 18, and then a 4-month-old when her beloved died by suicide. Okay, here we go. Shanna says, if we see a person that shows signs of wanting not to live but are not truthful, what do we do?
How do you know they're not truthful?
Well, I can say that there are some people that's their go-to, and they're emotionally manipulative when they don't get things that they want or life is not going the way they want. Then that's they're out.
To say I want to die by suicide?
Yes.
Or I want to kill myself. They never say I want to die by suicide. They always say I'm going to kill myself if I don't get A, B, and C. Yes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So that's what I'm asking is just a little clarification of the question, if she could.
Shantae said, good question. And she says, meaning that they say one thing, but actions show different.
So are you concerned that they actually are about to kill themselves and you want them to be hospitalized? Because when a person is right there at that precipice, my answer is going to be take them to the hospital. Because although you think, and we all think, that we have the power to stop someone, When a person has made their mind up that this is what they're going to do, the interventions are very, very, very difficult as one or two people who, right, yeah. So, you know, in the hospital, there are 3 shifts of professionals who come in fresh every day, who've been trained in techniques to help. The hospital, now most hospitals have, even the doorknobs don't allow you to tie something to it. It's very difficult to die by suicide in the hospital because of all the things that have happened in order to make the rooms, quote, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I realized that there's not even cords on the blinds, that they're encased inside of the window, and you have to just scroll with a little button.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. A lot has been done in terms of hospital safety, so that it's more difficult. The checks are not 15 minutes on the hour. The checks are randomized, 4 to 5 checks an hour. And if somebody is on watch, it's even more frequently. They can be put on a 1-to-1 where the person somebody is with them the whole time, all day and all night, standing right there with them while they're showering. Like there's a crack so that they can see through the curtain. Even the curtains in hospital settings are on tear downs, so the curtains can't be used.
Yeah.
In the shower. It's a lot of preventative stuff that's done in the hospital to make it really, really difficult. So that's why I say send them to the hospital. If you know that this person is actually suicidal, when my patients call and I think that something is happening, that they are either actually suicidal or about to be suicidal, I say take them to the hospital. I call the hospital. I let the hospital know that they're en route because it's serious.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so we'll take it on what I'm hearing you say is that on the other day we learned the 4 steps, that if you do the 4 steps, we even did some role play with it, that we can talk somebody up, we can talk them down. And what I'm hearing you say is that we can't talk them down.
When a person makes their mind up, I'm telling you, it's so I'll give you a little
She said, thank you for the information.
yeah, I had I was just covering one time, and it was that person had their mind made up. They had their mind made up. This is not just one. This is more than one.
Right.
One person had their mind made up, said they were going to do it, and that person did not make it a week out of the hospital, and they were gone. I had another person who said they were going to do it, and it took some time, but they had a single car accident with a tree. So when people say that this is what they want to do, it's real. It's it's like anything. If you say you want to do something, a lot of people are not going to stop until they accomplish their goal. At 3 years old, I said I wanted to be a physician. It took some time. Obviously, I wasn't a physician by the time I was 5 or 7 or 10 or 12 or 20. It took years and years and years and years and years and years of higher education, but I got there. So people who are dedicated to what they say they're going to do are going to do it. So I don't take it lightly when somebody tells me.
We want to say thank you to Jason Lee, who is watching. He was a guest as well, 2-time attemptee. I guess, do we say it that way? He tried twice.
I would say he survived. I would say he is a survivor of 2 suicide attempts, because I want to focus on the positive aspect of,
I agree,
of who they are, and that, those were very dark moments in their life. Whereas the actual attempt, is the very dark moment. But the fact that they survived and are here to tell the story to help inspire others not to attempt is really the place I would want to take it.
We want to tell him thank you so much for coming on and sharing his story. He gave us 6. I'm finding them. Here they go. I was taking notes. He gave us 6 things that he changed about his life or that helped him to being more than just a survivor. He's a thriver now. Number 1, his belief in God. Number 2, he found something that he became passionate about. Number 3, he started loving himself. Number 4, he learned how to be his own self-advocate. Number 5, he began writing. And number 6, he had affirmations that if he had to tell it to himself every second, every minute, every hour, but he said the affirmations until they got into his spirit. So we appreciate him for sharing that, with us and giving us those nuggets. And the other thing that, you talked about, that when they get in their mind, that was how we led out the month of September with Ellen Atkins, who was our guest, whose grandson had been attempting suicide. I think the first time he was 10 years old. And when he finally died, I believe he was 19 or 20. Yeah. And I know at least twice she was there to stop him. But the last time she wasn't able to. So she talked more about how her response, well, twofold, her response, but then, which we'll ask for clarification. We have a comment. It says, thank you for such positive affirmations and giving us things to reaffirm ourselves with daily. And Dr. Vertanji said, good afternoon, Dr. King. And we got a lot of hearts and a lot of lights that just went up on the screen. So we say thank you for that. We appreciate you.
I wish I could see the hearts and the likes.
Well, unfortunately, we don't get to see it in here.
I'm glad you're telling me, though. I'm glad I know that there's somebody watching beside me watching you and you watching me.
Because like we have Shantae, Shayna Thomas, and Thurston Willoughby all gave us hearts.
Okay.
Which is, you can see that right up here on our screen. Dr. Vertanji said that Dr. King is a wonderful person.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, you know what would she like to talk about? Because when we have other people's time in here, I know you probably have a whole agenda for us, Dr. Barrington. And
I do not.
Okay.
The agenda is everything that everyone has been asking all month.
Wow.
We have a psychiatrist in the house today.
Okay.
So all of the questions, all of the comments that people had all month long.
Okay.
Look, I'm
ready.
So I have everybody's comments. Dr. Vertanji said that you and her are Soros.
Yes. She is definitely an inspiration. She's a very positive person as well. Beautiful and positive.
Yeah, that's my pumpkin. I guess I could share her with you. I guess. So we want to say, hey, for she's all the way in Detroit. Y'all know she's a top fan. She said that my kids was in your medical program.
Shameless plug for Reach Out to Youth. We have one coming up November 23rd at Wayne State's Medical School again, and November 16th at Oakland University William Beaumont. So shameless plug on the Reach Out to Youth Facebook page. Those links will be on there.
Whoop, whoop. So we appreciate that. So what we learned with our first guest is that her grandson had been depressed. They noticed that he was different and was sad all the time at the age of 3.
Oh,
And so his first attempt at suicide was at age 10.
yeah. So a lot of times, there's a population that is very, very much at risk, and it's the population of other, right? So if a person identifies as other, be it because of gender, sexuality, or even because of neurodiversity, for example, being on the autistic spectrum. And 3 sort of triggered that for me when you said they, knew they were different in terms of how they felt at age 3. That's a lot of times when the signs of autism come out. I'm not attempting to postmortem diagnose that child, but I'm just saying that this population is at a higher risk because of not feeling connected. And one of the things that is super uber important for prevention of depression is connectedness. As humans, we are meant to connect with other living entities. You see, I have a plant in the background. Okay.
Yes.
So somebody came in here once and I didn't have any plants yet. And I intentionally didn't have any plants because I know that I could get a little compulsive about the number of plants I would get once I got one. So now I have about, 16 plants in here, because this plant over here, the ZZ plant, is like a potato at the bottom, and you can break it and give it and share it. And so it just keeps growing and giving and growing and giving and growing and giving. But even to plants, they're living. They are providing oxygenation. And if you're connected to plants, a lot of people want me to write them a animal support notice so that they can have their support animals. Animals are supportive. Animals are living things. But as somebody who used to have rental properties, they also cause damage, right? And so, if you want to have a support animal, you might have to find a place that allows you to have support animals as opposed to trying to live someplace that doesn't allow it, just because it's a lot. It's a lot of expense that those people are incurring, and you don't want your rent to go up, and you don't want other people's rents to go up because of that. So, but
get a plant.
Get a plant. Thank you. Connect that together. Get a plant, okay? Because the plants do require love and attention, or even a bird. Birds are great support animals. They're typically allowed in places. So there are ways around being connected to something that is like a dog or a cat. There are other animals and plants that allow you to connect. And then there are organizations. Volunteering is a huge source of connectedness. And there are so many places that need volunteers. There's art prizes going on right now, but there's churches. And even if it's not for the religious aspect of church, just the connectedness, the social connectedness. There's swing classes. I'm in Grand Rapids. There's swing classes. Most of the times those are free. Dance is a great way to connect to people, but connecting to other people is huge as an antidote to depression.
Okay. We have comments and questions. We're getting all these hearts and lights and the little care heart. Oh my goodness. Trying to keep up with everything and everybody. So Dr. Vertaji said this is a great conversation. Shantae says, if a person feels suicidal and Pine Rest says they have no beds and the person commits suicide, would Pine Rest be liable? For those of you who are viewing who are not in Michigan or on the West Side, Pine Rest is a mental health hospital.
Yes. So I was at Pine Rest for a bit of time, and I'll answer that to the best of my ability. So what happens is, as a physician, you are our patient once you are under our care. When you are not under our care, you are not our patient. So for example, with admissions to hospitals, if the person goes to the hospital, the person is in an ER, Okay, you've seen people lined up in the hallways of ERs. There's a reason they're lined up in the hallways and not in an ICU bed, because whatever it is that they have is not of a critical nature to need an ICU bed, but they cannot be discharged to home. So they may be suicidal, they may be homicidal, they may be having a heart attack, or, you know, being watched for that. So once that doctor lets you out of their sight, then the liability is there. If you never went to the hospital, there's nobody liable except you.
So the answer is no, Pine Rest is not liable because you never became their patient because they didn't have room or space.
Correct. Correct. Which is why I say go to the hospital, right? I didn't say go to the psych hospital because you might not get in. You know, you might not get in. You got to go to whatever hospital is close. Get them in there.
That was a good question. And I guess they would, I don't know. Okay, we're not going to play NCIS on that one.
Nope.
Leave that alone.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your, I know I probably got the answer because you said that you help with autism disorder.
Yes.
How did autism become a disorder if it's on a spectrum?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. So,
and I guess the other piece, because my first thought was, you know, Dr. V, her son has autism. So where you're going to have a conversation, I don't think that it's going to go away, you know, or you can keep him from being less autistic.
right.
Just like Shantae has 2 daughters and that have that are autistic, and one is nonverbal.
Yes. So that's why there's a spectrum, right? So you can have autism that is level 3, where it's nonverbal, social skills are impaired. They may have some stereotypies. They may be flapping. They may, you know, have to deal with something in their hand at all times. And so it's very severe. But then there are people who are on the autistic spectrum who, and I'm just going to say it, like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Einstein, who are more like Asperger's is the old term for it, where they're very high functioning, very intelligent. These are sort of stereotypic ways of thinking about Asperger's. Not all people with Asperger's are super intelligent, but it's kind of a stereotypic way. And they had impaired social skills. So socially, they're a little awkward. You know, back in the day, we called them nerds. You know, you call them for nerds, right? But, you know, with autism, they often will have some compulsivity, some compulsive behaviors. So if you think about like Bill Gates, he was pretty compulsive about getting Microsoft to work like Apple computers in terms of making Windows. I think that's what he did, right? And so that would be more user friendly. He was pretty compulsive about that in order to get that product created. And so a lot of people have those compulsive behaviors. And there's a joke on TikTok that says having a touch of autism. So some of us like to say that we have a touch of autism because we can go down that rabbit hole and, you know, okay, we can go down that rabbit hole, okay, and some people may think of us as being a little socially awkward because we're kind of odd in that way. And we can turn it on, we can turn it on our social, but then sometimes our social battery is like, you know, we kind of just got to go and hibernate a little bit. So that's how a spectrum disorder can still be a disorder, because the spectrum is that there's a broad range from this point to this point. That's why it's called the spectrum. What makes something a disorder is if it interferes with your social, occupational, or academic functioning. So that's what a disorder is. And we're moving away from disorder and starting to call it a condition. And I like condition because we all got conditions, right? Everybody got a condition. Diabetes is a condition. Hypertension is a condition. You know, obesity is a condition.
I'm loving it. I love language. I love words. And
that's where we started. We started with die by suicide as the way to talk about suicide, not committing because it's not a crime. You know,
that is how our conversation got started.
Yeah, we're going to keep on going back to that because I tell people in the beginning, there was the word.
And the word was,
okay, there we go. I said it. John 1:1. I just had to look that up this week. That's how I know the chapter and verse.
Well, the time is now 45 minutes after the hour. It's amazing how quickly the time has gone, but we're going to continue the conversation. If you are watching via GRTV 25, today is Friday, September 27th, and we are closing out our series because I want to make that clear that this has been a series because we know that people don't stop committing suicide or dying by suicide because the month of September leaves. And we should not stop trying to prevent it because September is leaving us. It's just the month. I don't know who decided that it should be that month, but I believe that there should not be a time stamp on anything dealing with the human condition. That's how I feel about it. Shayna said yes, the word. You caught that, right? That got thrown out there. She just was like, "Whoop, I caught it."
And so, you know, one of the things that were some of the preventative notions that people had, the gentleman who shared the 6 things, the 6 tenets that he does, the person who's not just surviving after his suicide attempts, but who is thriving. He said positive affirmations. And when you think, what are affirmations? Affirmations are words, right? They're things that we say to ourselves, about ourselves, for ourselves. So being sure that we have those affirmations daily is very important. Now, you don't have to believe that affirmation when you first start saying it. You do not have to believe that affirmation. You just have to say it. And as you say it over and over and over again, you will begin to believe little pieces and parts of it until you can believe more and more and more and more of it.
I love it. I wake up every morning. I look myself dead in the mirror. I say, "Ooh, pretty girl, I expect great things out of you today. And I love you." Every morning I get up.
Every day.
And even when I go to the bathroom 50 times a day, every time I look in that mirror to wash my hands, I'm like, "I love you."
Every day.
Ooh, I love you.
Every day.
And it makes a difference because when I first started saying it, no, I did not think that I was beautiful, didn't think I was pretty, and no, I did not love me. In fact, I didn't even like me. Let's just tell the truth.
Yeah.
Somebody like me. So the Bible says, "Now that I getting to get an understanding." So we have an understanding about that autism and the disorder and being on the spectrum. And then you have on there that you help with ADHD. How do you help with? Oh, we got a comment here. Oh, yes. It is important to love ourselves. It is. It is. It is.
So how do I help with ADHD? Well, the first thing is awareness, right? So I just had this conversation with somebody whose son I'm treating for ADHD, and he doesn't want his kid on medication, and he doesn't really believe in it. He doesn't believe
in the condition or in medication or both.
Well, so that's where I struggle, right? When people say, "Well, I don't believe in it." Okay, can you help me? What is the it? Is the it you don't believe in medications for medical disorders and conditions, or you don't believe in ADHD as a medical disorder or condition? Help me help me. Okay. So then we go down that rabbit hole, and they give me all kinds of, I'm not even going to repeat it. Okay. Because what I am going to say is that the reason that people don't believe in brain conditions is because people don't understand the brain. So this is one of the ways that I help people understand the brain. So this is a brain hat, right? We make these at our Reach Out to Youth, okay? And it's got the lobes, the frontal lobe, and I could, of course, take this hat off and put it on top or whatever, okay? But this is the part that I really, really like, because this shows, if I were to split my head down the middle, let this side flip down, this is what you would see on the inside. So this is the frontal lobe. This is all cortex, okay? And this is the limbic system. This is the heart of our brain. This is where feelings are. This is where thoughts are, okay? And this is the frontal lobe, which is the last part of the brain to be developed. It's not developed until age 25. So why am I talking about this? Because when you look at this thing, this organ, this brain, just from the outside, like, if you're looking at it from this side, it just looks like a clump of mass. But when you cut it down the middle and you look on the inside, you can see that there's a lot of difference. This is that tree of life. This is where all those autonomic functions are, like breathing, digestion, all that stuff. So it looks very different. And this is our central nervous system. This is what's going down to our spinal cord to connect to all the other parts of the body. So this is where feelings are. This is the heart of the brain. This is our limbic system. I like to say to myself every day, I love you with all my limbic, because this is really where love comes from. This is where that serotonin is, that is in that gut. This is where those Prozac Paxils of the world. But you can see how closely united they are. Where did you go, darling? You put me on there.
Yep.
Get back.
Oh, I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
We're in solo mode for you to.
Oh.
You were talking and.
Okay. I like solo mode, but I like seeing you as well. I like seeing your beautiful face there.
There we go. But we wanted everybody to see the brain and how everything is connected and works.
Yes. And I have a whole, don't let me go down that rabbit hole, because if you let me go down that rabbit hole talking about the brain, I will be there. But I got it right here in case anybody has questions. So.
Well, let's spend a little time there. There's a way can we recondition our brain? So one of the questions that kind of came up with the young man, I think at the beginning of the series, who at 3, they knew that he was suffering from depression. So is that considered clinical depression when you know it from a little age versus situational depression? So this is, like postpartum, that's like changing of our hormones. We did talk to our first Michigan Supreme Court Judge, Kyra Harris Bolden, and she talked about having postpartum depression and how it affected her. So it's postpartum depression along with her running for office and then losing, and all of the time and the energy that's put into that, that drop off of adrenaline, I guess you would say, you're running on adrenaline and then everything just comes to a halt.
Right. So back to this brain, this organ, right?
Yeah.
So this brain, this runs on a brain chemical called dopamine. Okay. This front part runs on a brain chemical called norepinephrine, which is noradrenaline. You just mentioned adrenaline. Okay.
Yeah.
So that noradrenaline and dopamine, they hang out in this decision maker part of the brain. Okay. And so they influence how we think. And how we think influences how we feel. And how we feel influences the decisions we make. And you see how I'm doing this triangle here? Because
okay, so say it again. How
so there's feelings.
It starts with.
So it's hard to say where it starts.
No, you did a pattern. You said
I said feelings. Thoughts.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. Feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. So feelings, thoughts,
so before.
And behaviors. Okay. So this limbic system is the most primitive part of our brain. So that's why I start with feelings. I always like to say, if you watch an alligator is gonna snap at whatever comes across its mouth, even if it's sleeping. Okay. Alligator sleeping, mouth open, something trickles across it, it's gonna snap at it, except a baby alligator. The reason it won't snap at a baby alligator is because it smells its own, and so the survival of the species won't make it snap at its own. So that's all very limbic, okay? So this is that feelings part. Then the thoughts, humans have a bigger cortex than other animals because we have more complex connections in thinking. So when we look at the cortex, that's really where this is what we're more familiar with, is looking at that cortex with all those lobes, the front, the temporal, the motor, the sensory, right? The parietal, the occipital lobe. People are real familiar. That's all cortex. That's all this stuff is what we're familiar with looking at. And so this is all the thinking, those complex thinking. And then finally, this frontal lobe, right? This frontal lobe that's right in the front, right behind our eyes, our forehead.
Right here.
Lobe, yep. That is the part that is the decision maker. So people will say, well, how does therapy help? Okay. The way therapy helps is that it helps you change how you're thinking, because a lot of people have unhealthy automatic thoughts. They have things like mind reading, fortune telling, should statements. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. All or nothing thinking, all of those cognitive distortions that we all have. And they then affect those thoughts, flipping all over the sad music we listen to. We listen to that music that's depressing. And before you know it, we're crying. Somebody left us. The relationship didn't go well. The finances weren't right. Now we thought we all in our thoughts, and then we all in our feelings. And then before you know it, we're making decisions that are unhealthy. Get back in that abusive relationship. Not to mention the whole suicide, going down that suicidal thing, right? So how therapy helps is that therapy helps us to disconnect our unhealthy feelings, thoughts, and behaviors and rewire them so that they're healthy. So that we're coming to healthy conclusions about how we feel, how we think, and how we behave.
So Trina says, yes, wow, education, teach me. And then she came back and said, you are teaching, yes.
Thank you. It is a passion. I do like to do that. But that's that touch of autism, right? When we like to teach that much and we get so as I told you, I would go down that rabbit hole.
The Bible says, in all thy getting to get an understanding. And so once we truly understand, then it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Because I was in my feelings, and we'll say that.
Yes.
Because it's just cute to say.
Right. Not
but it's
thinking
real.
that we're here, that we're living right here in our feelings, literally in our feelings. So when that guy said, how is ADHD? I don't believe in it. You don't have to believe in it. It's just what it is. You don't have to believe in gravity. But when you jump, you coming down. Okay. Gravity is a reality. You don't have to believe in it. And so I say to him, he wears glasses, right? I said, these are prescription. You are literally wearing medicine on your face. How can you tell me that you don't believe you need glasses. Like, that's a medicine. This is going to be eye drops pretty soon. In our lifetime, we won't even have to wear glasses if we don't want to. We've already got very thin contact lenses. They're already looking at how to make it just eye drops to change the configuration of your eyes so that becomes your glasses. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to believe in it. It's just reality.
I saw it. Well, while you playing, they do have drops on Temu.
It's coming.
They got drops on Temu that you just start using it, and they said it takes like 4 to 6 weeks, but it'll change the color of your eyes. So I'm just like, oh,
it's coming.
So okay, so we not far off. If they can change your eye color, it should work to fix it.
Yeah. So awareness is the first step to change, right? So Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Awareness is the first step to change. So, and again, just to, I have a girlfriend who is a radiation therapist. We were in school at the same time, and I mistakenly said to her when we were in school, "Girl, why are you going into cancer? We're going to have a cure for cancer by the time." Clearly not. Okay. But because they were so intentional about getting the cure for cancer, so much more intentional about finding out how many cancers, what kind of cancers, putting research dollars into it, we are far further in the treatment of cancers than we are with brain health conditions. So we're just, at the tip of the iceberg, scratching the surface on treatments for brain health and helping people have awareness that brain health is real and that this thing called a brain is an actual organ. It's an actual important functioning organ of the body. This is where our feelings live. Love, hate, fight, flight, all of those intense emotions live right there. That's exactly where they live. And then they spur out and tell the rest of the brain, "Oh, I'm scared of that. Oh no, I love roller coasters." Well, what's the difference between scared of a roller coaster and loving a roller coaster? Nothing but a decision. It's nothing but a decision.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Some people be scared of love.
So I'm rolling into it, all wheelchairs and
because it's so intense. It's such an intense emotion, right?
Yes.
It is scary. And it is scary to love yourself, because as you love yourself, that means you got to accept your flaws. But in order to accept your flaws, you got to be aware of your flaws. You can't just be like in denial that you got flaws. We all got flaws.
Okay. Mikhail, we are still, let's see. She wants to watch it. So I'm going to tell her to, somebody just inbox me about wanting to attend. Here we go. So Shayna must be watching on 100 Shades, I think. Let's see. Let me see where Shayna's watching from. Yeah. I tell you, it's good. See, if we don't understand the inner workings, this is about learning ourselves from the inside out. Because we have so many things where we learn from outside in instead of inside out. Yeah. And there's definitely a difference.
Yeah. And so, you said it, and obviously no copyright infringement intended, just plug in the movie. Actually, that series Inside Out 1 and 2 are just brilliantly done, because they really are talking about brain health. And so, as Riley, who's that central character in Inside Out, goes from a child to a teenager in Inside Out 2, her emotions become more complex. In the beginning, all she had was, sadness, joy, anger, fear, and disgust, those 5. And then Inside Out 2, they become so much more complex. Mm-hmm. She now has anxiety. Anxiety gets in the driver's seat and does some stuff. There's nostalgia, which comes out to visit every so often.
Yeah.
So there are all these new emotions that show up, and that happens as we as we grow up. You know, we grow up and things, this cortex becomes more dense and more, the connections become more finite. They become harder to change as we grow up. They're not quite as pliable as when we're children and we're learning things like little sponges. They still are able to be changed. Those neural connections are still able to be changed. So people who have trauma in their history, who have knee-jerk reactions when something triggers them, okay? And people love to say, oh, don't do that, you're triggering me. You know what? That's your trigger, okay? It's not my responsibility for you to handle your triggers, okay? And that's your responsibility to handle your triggers. So I'm glad that maybe that word has kind of started to subside in its popularity, because some people wanted other people to take responsibility for their trauma. It's not my responsibility, you know, being triggered. Oh, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people would say, don't say that, that triggers me.
Yeah, but to me, that gives you an opportunity to grow.
Yes.
And work through it.
Yes.
So by the second or third time, okay, now we need to deal with this. Let's unpack this a little bit.
Absolutely.
And you're not in that situation. It's not happening to you. You are controlling this situation. And now it's time for you to come on the other side of it.
Absolutely. So well, thank you for being my interpreter. You know, I do need I need a common sense interpreter sometimes.
You know, I'm honestly, I'll use myself for an example. True story. For me, I was being stalked by the person who physically and sexually assaulted me. And I didn't realize how it carried over, because I had a neighbor who loved to sit in the window and watch me. And then she would tell me, I mean, if this was the month that we were doing 4 a.m. prayer, she would be in the window at 3:35, because she knows I'm going to be out there to get in my car. That's a trigger for me. Because now you're watching me. I'm trying to get to my car. My car is in the parking lot. The incident happened in a parking lot when I was trying to get to my car. But then going to therapy, it gave me the opportunity to say, but I'm in control of the situation now.
Right.
No one's going to hurt me. No one, she's just nosy.
Right.
You don't have nothing else to do.
Yes.
So speak to her. She's not a threat.
Right.
Just say, well, good morning. Or would you like to come to prayer? There's a plethora of ways to handle that situation instead of you remaining the victim after all of these years.
Yes.
When do you become the victor and stop surviving and begin to thrive?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most powerful thing, is to help people to reframe what the situations are. Some people's life situations you look at and they're really going through some trying times, but they still are resilient and are thriving through the trials and tribulations. So because they're able to reframe it, they're able to reframe, this is where I am and I'm going to live my life.
And I think that when people, I do know, when people ask me, how have I been able to get through all of everything that I have experienced? And that's it. I had to make the decision that I was going to think and feel differently about it, because trust, I don't know where this man is. He may have even passed on, but I guarantee you he's not thinking about me and about what happened all those years ago and how it may have affected me. And I felt that's way too much power for anybody to have. nobody, I think that was the first conclusion that I came to, is that I would never allow anybody to have that much power over me. Because when I had my stroke, my whole left side was paralyzed. And that's what really gave me the aha moments, if you will, or the insight and the ability to really overcome a lot of the things that I had experienced, a lot of the traumas, because I promise you to this day that I was more crippled walking around than I ever have been being in this wheelchair.
It's funny. So one of the things I love about the brain is how fast the neural connections happen, right? So I said a word and you had a lot of thoughts, and you said a word and it made me think of something. So you said, you promised me that you were more crippled walking around than you are in that wheelchair. And I know some people today who are walking around thin, looking like they're in good shape, and they are walking around with multiple health problems, in denial of their multiple health problems, literally a walking time bomb to have a cardiac arrest, heart attack, or stroke, because they're afraid to go to the doctor. And they're afraid of medications to treat their illness. Now, the thing is, when that happens, the person who has avoided that level of health care, they are not only infringing upon their health by not taking care of their health, they're infringing upon someone else's health, because when they spontaneously collapse with a heart attack, a stroke, and possibly die, whoever finds them because they denied their health care is now traumatized.
Yep.
And this is happening in our families.
It's a ripple. It's a ripple effect.
And over and over and over and over again. I've had 2 Black males in my family die pretty much quickly because of delayed or denied health care, that they did not take care of their health. And they are younger than me. They are no longer with us on this side. And they were very loved. And then I just had someone else that I know who was, my age, who was doing that same thing. And I thought, oh, and so I know that No Shave November is coming up. And No Shave November really started because it is a push for men to get into their doctors, to get their health checked out. So if I can say this to one person, to one wife, to one girlfriend, to one cousin, to one man, get that doctor's appointment on the books and get your blood pressure done, get your lipids done. If it's time for a GI exam, get that done, because although you may not think that is a way of dying by suicide, denying your health care is
the biggest way that people die by suicide.
It's a way of essentially dying by suicide. Yep. It's suicide by omission almost, right? Because you omitted taking care of yourself. I done did my rant. Whew, I'm sorry. I had to get that out of me. That has been in me for a minute.
Well, this is what we're here for, a safe place to express yourself, get messages out, to share, to teach, to learn.
No, you did say it was a safe place. Woo! I had to get that out of me. I thank you. Thank you, y'all, for letting me get that out of me.
Yeah, this is a safe place. We can have those tough conversations, or have conversation starters that don't happen in other places.
Yeah. Death by omission. I'm going to call it that. I'm going to write that down. You know, that people are it's suicide by omission of healthcare. It's hard. It's hard to hear that that's kind of like what it is.
Especially when you already know that you're overweight and you don't change the way that you eat. You don't change your sleeping habits. You don't change your drinking habits. You are literally, you're no different than the person that says life is difficult. I'm experiencing all these things. I'm making this decision because I think it's going to be the best decision for me in the moment.
And weight is a tricky one because, you know, like I lost 30, 40 pounds in the last year, and my blood pressure was high. My lipids were, not my lipids, but my
triglycerides.
Pardon me?
I said triglycerides?
No, they weren't high. But my hemoglobin A1C, you know, I was on the verge of being diabetic, and I really hate needles. So I really didn't want to be diabetic. And so, you know, the other needles came out, the Mounjaro, et cetera, that, you know, allowed me to lose weight without as much work. And so then my blood pressure went down and my hemoglobin A1C normalized, but I may have to be on this medication for life. But when I was
what is this medication that you're on?
It's just those GLP-1s, you know, the GLP-1s, you know, Ozempic, Mounjaro, that stuff. But the thing I'm saying is really about obesity. There are people who are heavy who don't have diabetes, who don't have hypertension, who don't have hyperlipidemia, who are exercising every day. You know, it could be because of medications. It could be for a lot of reasons that their weight stays high. And so the condition of obesity in and of itself, although it's a condition, it may not be the most unhealthy condition. There are other conditions that are equally unhealthy that people who are not obese have. That person that I said that has high blood pressure, high hyperlipidemia, and diabetes, they are not overweight. They are a normal weight person, actually maybe even underweight. But they are a literal walking time bomb to have a stroke or a cardiac arrest. But because they don't look unhealthy, they can stay in denial.
We don't want that.
We don't want that. We want our loved ones to stay with us as long as they can be with us.
We do. We really, really do. I want to say, let's see, the time is now, it is 10 minutes to 7.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was eye-opening. It was refreshing. And everybody got a little bit of a therapy session, and they got an opportunity to see the inner workings of their brain and have another opportunity to rethink some things. We know that our feelings turn into our thoughts, and our thoughts turn into habits. That is the big takeaway from our conversation today, is that we got to start checking our feelings. And do we even need to? My daddy used to say, some things you have to let die for lack of attention.
That's right.
And everything, you know, he would always tell me, everything don't need you. And I said, what you mean by that? They don't need that feeling about you, and you don't need to have that feeling about that. Let that go.
Yeah.
Let that go over there.
Yeah.
And he said, because every tub needs to sit on its own bottom. And I was like, wow. And I said, you're not no garbage can. Stop being a receptacle. Because sometimes we take on other people's feelings and their thoughts.
I had a friend that used to say they didn't want to sit next to some people because their spirit would jump on them. And when they said it to me, I thought they were a little cuckoo for saying it, right? But I've had to like come to understand that what their intention in that was is really to know that when you're in close proximity to people, sometimes your boundaries get blurry
Mm-hmm.
and you take on their feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. So that is literally you're taking on their psyche.
You do.
Okay. So you're taking on their spirit, because that's what psyche means. Psyche doesn't mean brain, it means spirit, soul, and breath. And so when you are in close proximity, you can often take on the psychological aspects of someone else. And it literally is like their spirit jumps on you if your boundaries aren't intact. So helping people with these boundaries, making sure that we stay connected with other people, but you don't have to become a part of their entire reality. Like they can have their reality, you can have your reality, and you can still play Pacino together, play bingo together.
That's it.
Take a walk together, have a conversation, you know, still be connected, but still have healthy boundaries as well.
That's that. Wow. It's a good one. Because a lot of us don't know. The other thing that I like to say is that when you start going through this process, you know, what's the resistance in it? Because usually I think Shayna kind of alluded to it about the person who says that they're going to commit suicide, but you know that they're not going to. And, you know, how do you know, is today the real time, or is this, you know, that game that you're playing with me again? Is who's benefiting? You know, what do you benefit from doing this? And what do other people benefit from you being that way? And it has everything to do with boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Everything to do with boundaries.
Yeah. I know it's 6:52. Once upon a time, I was working in Detroit, and someone that I worked with, I did not know at the time they had bipolar disorder. Mm-hmm. And they got depressed, and they, you know, were super depressed. And they said, you know, I don't know if I'm feeling safe. And I said, well, you could come on and stay at my house so you can feel safe. So they came and they stayed and they moped around and they didn't get out of bed. And, you know, I had to like make sure they got something to eat and this. I mean, I became a whole healthcare aid hospital system within my house. Let me tell you what I will never, ever, 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 ever do again.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Ever.
Ever. I will never, ever do that again. That's why I said, when somebody tells you that they are feeling suicidal, take them to the hospital. That is the boundary. That is the healthy boundary that you are allowing yourself to have, and allowing them, if they want help, to get help. Because if they're going to make that choice to die by suicide, that is a choice they're going to make. And I know this sounds horrible, but at the beginning and the end of the day, we all have free will.
We do.
Okay. It is not your fault. It is not your fault if that person dies by suicide. It is not. Okay. That was their intention. And it is a hard pill to swallow. That is a hard pill to swallow. It is hard, but it is so real. And having had that person in my home that time, it was so draining. But it was a teachable moment that I needed to have. I was a whole psychiatrist. I should have known better, right? I'm going to shoot on me. I should have known better, but I didn't. But I know now. I know now what my boundaries are. So.
Wow. Any final words on today, or this evening, I should say?
Well, we're coming into a weekend, and as we know, you know, the seasons are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually met at an event at the Grand Rapids Black Nurses
Yes.
Gala. And I actually purchased a piece done by the artist Lester White called Seasons Change. So I think I can show the piece. You see it up there on the wall?
Oh, wow.
You see it?
Yes.
Okay, it's blurry probably, but the reason I wanted to show that piece is because sometimes things happen in our lives for, what do they say, reasons, seasons, and lifetimes. Sometimes lessons are lifetime lessons. Sometimes lessons are just lessons we need in the moment, and sometimes lessons are lessons to help us recognize that the season is changing. So as we're moving towards this new season, I think embrace it. Embrace all of the healthy things that we can learn from this uh, to move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It has definitely been a joy to do this series. Again, as I've said all month, if you are in crisis, please dial 988, and it is good in all 50 states, regardless of where you are. We are in all 50 states and in about 10 countries. So if you are in the United States, please dial 988. If you are a veteran, dial 988 and push the number 1. We are so grateful. And we do take a moment for those of you who have lost someone. Just know, as Dr. King just stated, that once the decision has been made, that there was nothing that you could have done to change their mind. But just make sure you watch for the signs, get an opportunity, go back, watch the replays on YouTube. They are really great. A lot of information, a lot of stories, help you to identify or even understand someone who's already died. Hopefully, once you watch these, it'll help you to gain more insight, more understanding, and release some of the guilt that you may be experiencing. And they do call that survivor's guilt. And know that it's not your fault. We want to say thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you. We couldn't have been doing this for 4 years if it were not for you. And I look forward to you on next week. I will be leaving for Florida, but before I go, got a couple of young folks who started a business, and we'll get an opportunity to meet them. It's a juicing. I love juicing and liquid and smoothies. So we'll have an opportunity. They are a Black-owned business. And what I love even more, they're partners. So one is a Black female and the other is a Black man who uses a wheelchair. He is a quadriplegic. So there is life after this. And then the following week, I will be in Florida. So I will be coming to you live from Florida. And then when we come back, we will be talking about the election, Michigan being a swing state. We are in the works of getting all of the leaders from the NAACPs who are in a swing state so that you know how you need to vote and the importance of voting this year. So if you're not registered, get registered. Even if you are a felon, you do now have the right to vote. So
when did that happen?
It happened here in Michigan. Yeah, it happened a couple of years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yep, that you can vote.
Nice.
So you guys, it is flu season. So please get your vaccination. And me, I will be getting my flu shot along with my COVID. There is a new strain that is out, and they do have a new vaccine for the new strain. So until we meet again, be well. And thank you again for tuning in to Rolling